this is Evelyn from Magellan College Counseling, and I'm here today with my good friend and fellow counselor, Marissa Margosian, who is a school counselor based on the East Coast, and she takes just a handful of clients with us every year because being a school counselor is, as I'm sure you know by now, a busy job. Marissa and I met each other many, many years ago touring colleges. We actually met on a California college tour in Northern California. And we've actually visited many, many colleges together since then. And in fact, Marissa is one of the few people on earth that has visited more colleges than me. She has been everywhere. So she is a reliable source for what college should you go to. So Marissa, thank you for joining me for a few minutes. And why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself and how you came to college counseling?
Absolutely. So I have been working in schools for a long time. I was an English teacher originally and had been working in Maryland as an English teacher. And about 2 years into that job, the current college counselor approached me and said, "Hey, have you ever thought about this? I think you'd be good at it." And I did and thought it was a great idea. And so for 3 years, I worked half-time English, half-time college counseling, and got trained really well with him and had a great time, loved it, decided I wanted to do it full-time. So I left to do a full-time college gig at another school and then return to Maryland, continuing in college counseling since then, and have not looked back. Loved it.
Not look back. Yep. So, so you said you love it, and everyone who does this loves. We all love what we do. What do you love about college counseling? What is like your favorite part? What's your favorite kind of student to work with?
I love the light bulbs when the students figure out what they want to do. I love when they grin that they finally got that essay just the way they love it, and it's coming out right. I love the excitement when they get that first acceptance letter and the first scholarship. Everything. It's great. It's a fabulous process, and I love seeing them take those next steps in their journey.
Do you have a specific kind of student? Are you good at working with engineers? Are you good at artists? Who do you like working with?
Oh, just a little bit of everybody. I have a lot of experience with the artists, performing in fine arts, and engineers and athletes, especially equestrian. I love the student who's just figuring it out, who doesn't know. And that's cool too, because there's so many great schools out there for the students who are figuring it out. So I love working with all the students. I think there's a place for everybody, and I love helping them figure that out.
As you know, this the period of time when we're working with students in their life is really stressful for them.
Sure.
What do you do to help them take a step back from that and kind of minimize the stress?
Oh, yes, it is stressful. Absolutely. So I think part of it is making sure they have the information they need. Information is power. And if they know that they're on the right track, they know what the steps they are that they're going to take, that we're going to take together. I've got their back. All of us at Magellan have their back. I think that reduces the stress that they know we are not going to let them fall through those cracks, right? And if they know that we are setting them on the right path and we're going to make sure they take the right steps in the right order and get it done, phew, right? Like big sigh of relief, though the weight comes off the shoulders. And that's what we're here for, right? We know what we're doing. We see the path, we've been down it. We will make sure you get down it too. And I think that reduces a great deal of anxiety and a great deal of stress.
Yep. Now you used to be an English teacher.
Yes.
So I think you have a really strong starting point when you're working with students on essays. Yep. But I always tell students that the essays that they write for school for their English teacher are different than the essays that they write for college. So talk to us a little bit about that.
Right. Absolutely. I think one of the biggest myths is that the students think they can't use I in the essay. And when they, I can, it's great. English essays are third person, they're impersonal, they're analytical. Our essays are very personal, and it's telling the story and revealing who you are and saying something important about yourself. And it is a personal essay. You do use first person pronouns. It's about you. It's all about you. This is the process. Yep. And so I think getting them into that mindset of it's okay to say it's okay to be telling a story is one of the first big hurdles. And once they get past that, often students think like, oh, okay, look at all these wide open possibilities of things that they could talk about. So that's one of the hurdles. And then the brainstorming and the talking and the voice and making sure it is their voice is really crucial.
Do you ever, when you're talking about making sure it's the student's voice, you have to sort of balance the parents wanting to be involved.
Sure.
And to a certain level, that's okay. And beyond it might detract from
Yes,
what the student has to say for themselves. So how do you deal with that?
absolutely. So just making sure that everybody on board knows that this is the student story,
Yeah.
right? And editing is okay. Making sure the grammar is okay is fine. Writing it for somebody else, not fine, right? It has to be the student. It has to be this is the student's journey. The student has to be driving the bus on
Yep.
this, and that includes writing the essay. And again, it's okay to brainstorm ideas, to bounce ideas around, to get an opinion. It's not okay to have someone come in and say like, oh, this word is better, this doesn't sound right. We don't want to be reading a thesaurus. We want to hear about the student, right? And from the student, and use vocabulary that the student would use, because that's part of voice. And so just making sure that yes, it sounds like the student. And I think after talking, you and I know, and other counselors know, we can tell when it's the student, we can tell when it's been tweaked a little too much by somebody else, right?
Sure.
And so knowing that that's only going to hurt the student in the process, and even though editing comes with the best of intentions,
Yes.
not always the best thing to do.
Result.
Right.
You also have a unique vantage point being a school counselor. You know things that we can't know externally. So obviously specifically about the students in your school, but you also can help the students that you work with privately interface with their school counselors, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So school counselors are responsible for so much, right? And I'm very lucky that I work at a school where I'm only doing college counseling. But sometimes the students are coming from schools where they are doing much more than that, and things need to be done very specifically and in advance, and making sure that the students understand that process of, okay, when do you need to ask for transcripts? How do you need to ask for transcripts?
Yep.
To use Naviance, to use Score. I've used Naviance and Score, so those are very common school tools. I can help the students navigate that as needed. I can make sure that the requests are put in electronically, or that I've reminded the student to put in requests for transcripts or rec letters. Have you asked, how's your school collecting those? Let's make sure the process is done accurately and on time so that your school can get those documents out, and not delay the process, right? So those are some big things that the student has to have some control over in terms of requesting, but then ultimately has to trust it. Once it's handed over, it's going to be done by the school personnel.
You know, one of the differences between your school counselor and your independent counselor is we have to deal with all sorts of different processes at all sorts of different schools, right? Because I'm never working with all students from one school, you know, so I'll have one student who, you know, their transcripts and their letters of rec have to be requested on paper, and one school where it's all electronic through Naviance. So we really have to, we have to be aware with every student that we're working with what the processes are at their school. I just think that you as a school counselor have a little more empathy, I guess, for how difficult it is to be managing, you know, even if it's a private school caseload, it's still a caseload, right?
Yes.
And it's a lot of balls up in the air.
It is, absolutely. And the more we can do to make sure that they get the paperwork in on time and accurately, the easier is that everything gets out on time.
Anything else that that people should know about working with you? What kind of family are you the most effective with, and do you most enjoy working?
I do love working with all sorts of families, but I think students who are willing to let me know if there's something they need.
Yeah.
Right. Like, we are on top of things, but at the same time, if I'm not answering the question in the way that's effective, or if there's something that you would prefer to talk about at that point, like, I'm really concerned about this. Can we do this today?
Yeah.
Right. Like having that back and forth, I think, is really effective. And make sure that all the balls are being covered, or everything's being covered, right? And that we're making sure the stress is being managed, because if I'm not covering something that you're curious about,
right,
and I often try to ask, like, okay, what else can we do today? What's worrying you? Right. But if you're not going to be upfront about that, none of us can help that, right? If we don't know. So I particularly like that, to make sure that I don't have to worry that you're worried, right? That we're covering all the stuff that needs to happen. Someone the students who are willing, and parents who are willing to be very upfront about what's important to them, right? And you know, is it finances? Is it athletics? Is it the culture of the school? Do they want to make sure that all of the pieces are being put together properly? So I think I think for any of us, if we have that relationship with the family and the student, we're going to make sure the student ends up in a really great place.
Good two-way communication is really what you're saying.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah, I think that's something that all of us would prioritize for the students that we work with.
Absolutely. I think so too.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Just wanted to give people a feel for what you're good at and what you like and what it's like to work with you. And
Well, thank you, Evelyn. This was great.